Good morning, Mr. McNamara. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thanks. I'm well. Susie, how you doing?
Excellent. I'm fantastic. I've been to a networking event this morning. I've had a
Woo!
coffee. I've had a couple of coffees. Can you tell?
Ah! That's great.
And I'm ready to rock and roll.
Awesome.
All righty.
Awesome.
So today in our Highly Live for 25, and I hope you guys have been able to join us in our Highly Live for 25 today. Over the next 25 minutes, we're going to be sharing with you our top tips on dealing with personalities in business.
Yes, dealing with personalities.
And
So
it's always a very interesting topic because there's always all different kinds of personalities in business, and no matter what business you're in. Good morning, Claire Williams. How are you, darling? Claire's joined us live, which is brilliant. Now,
hello,
guys,
g'day, Claire.
if you're joining us live, then throw a hello and howdy in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're watching this as a replay, just put hashtag replay in the comments. And if you have any questions throughout, throw them in those comments and we'll be able to see them. And and we'll be able to get back to you as soon as we can. All right. So Claire said, I need to hear this today. Yes, it's a very interesting topic, this one. So I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Awesome. Well, there's two main groups of people in business that where business owners and managers to a certain degree as well get challenged by personalities and differences. So one of those, of course, is our group of customers. And that can be really interesting because, as you're dealing with customers, particularly brand new prospects, you don't know them all that well. And until the trust is high, a customer often doesn't reveal much of themselves to you either. So you can be sort of wondering, am I hitting the mark here? And those sorts of things. And then, of course, as your business gets bigger and you've got employees on board, then there's a whole raft of issues around the personalities there in terms of being able to delegate off an instruction and have that instruction followed, be able to have the talk and the chats with staff members when perhaps performance isn't up to what it should be, and all of those sorts of things. So one of the things that happens for us, though, and why it's important to understand or have a model or a framework for understanding different personalities is because for most of us, we communicate to other people in a similar fashion that we like to be communicated to ourselves. And that is really based on our personality or behavioral style. And the different tools can use different words, but I'm going to throw in personality or behavioral style to mean essentially the similar thing for the purposes of today's little session.
Yep.
So we communicate to others as we like to be communicated to ourselves, and that's based on our personality. So what happens then when you meet someone who has a personality similar to yourself, and that can happen in 20-25% of cases, you'll click, you'll hit it off, everything will work well, your natural instincts will be in tune, and that communication will just move and progress forward. But what happens when you meet and you're dealing with someone who doesn't have a personality just like yours? Then you can sort of really miss the mark or suffer from foot in mouth disease or be left wondering, what planet did they beam down from? So what we want to be able to do is to first and foremost understand that it's an act of empathy to be considering the other person in terms of what is their behavioral style or personality style, and therefore what are their preferences around receiving their information. How do they like to process information? How do they like to make decisions? So when we are empathetic towards that, that goes a long way to building trust in the communication process anyway, right?
Yep.
But also it allows us to be able to change how we are delivering our message. I don't think you need to change the message you're delivering. So particularly if it's around, say, a price negotiation with a customer, or it might be around giving instruction or giving some corrective advice to employees, you don't need to change what you're saying, but the way you say it may be able to change. So I've always worked with a model called DISC, and it's fun. There's no copyright on it. It's famous. It was sort of developed out of Carl Jung's behavioral psychology theories, and it's very, very popular, and it gives people essentially a 4-quadrant grid to work on. And it's really 2 aspects of a person that I think you want to work out. And even if you can't remember the terms, you can still get a sense of who I'm dealing with. And that's a really important thing. So the first way we look at how differences occur between people is how do they interact with the world is the first one. So are they a sort of person who's outgoing and bold and brash and takes things on and speaks up and speaks out? Or are they someone who's more reserved and tends to consider decisions deeply, maybe not speak up as much, maybe find it a little bit difficult to express what they're really thinking or feeling, right through to those people who are very quiet. So these things sort of exist
like
on
me, James.
Yeah, very quiet, yeah. These things exist on a continuum. So you're not one or the other. You're more one way than the other way. But some people get confused with an outgoing style of personality, for example, thinking that they are going to be the people who are the loudest tools in the shed. Well, they are outgoing people, yes, the loudest tools in the shed. But also you can have someone who is more on the outgoing side of things, even if they're not Mr. or Mrs. Chatterbox all the time. But the way I like to sort of imagine that midpoint in that scale is when they need to speak up for themselves, are they reasonably comfortable doing it?
Yeah.
So you can have someone who may not be Mr. or Mrs. Chatterbox at work, but when they need to express themselves or get a point of view across or ask for help or let someone else know that what they're doing isn't working for them or what have you, they can absolutely get on and do that. And then it sort of continues from there to the people who, just could talk under wet cement, And then the other way around, you've got people who find it slightly hard to speak up for themselves and speak up and speak out, right through to those who are desperately shy. And that's the first sort of way we split the difference. Am I dealing with an outgoing person or am I dealing with a slightly reserved person? And that tells you a lot anyway, right? Because you know that with an outgoing person, if I ask probing questions, and chances are I'm going to be able to get an answer. Whether that's a problem you're solving with an employee or whether it's a problem you're trying to help a client solve, your questions, chances are you'll get an answer. Whereas the reserved people, you'll probably need to work in a more sensitive way to be able to get information out of them because they're not so comfortable talking up or even talking about themselves or what have you. And also...
Claire's just said, shy like me.
Good on you, Claire. No, Claire, you wouldn't pass the exam at the end of this if you might pass the sarcasm exam, but
Hey Lane, how are you, darling? Love
so that's another interesting one too when it comes to thinking from a customer's point of view. Should I be asking this person to make a decision now? So if you're dealing with an outgoing person who feels comfortable speaking up for themselves, then they are the ones you can ask closing questions to.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you don't ask closing questions to that percentage of the population, I think you're missing an opportunity.
I think
because they will make decisions and make them fast.
Yeah.
Quite often they make fast decisions, yeah?
And I think that's the power in understanding, understanding these different personalities, like you said, especially with the DISC profiling system, which I love. I think it's great. I know there's a lot deeper you can go into it, but even if you just know the basics of it, just something as simple as that, as going, okay, well, do I ask this person a closing question now and push the point? Or do I leave them? Because depending on their personality type, someone like me, I want to make a decision now. You ask me now, I'll make a decision right now. I'll tell you yes or no right now. But if you don't ask me, then I'm going to start looking around and I'll probably buy it off Frank down the road because he asked the question. Whereas someone else,
Johnny on the spot.
Yeah, whereas someone else needs to sit and think and consider and analyze everything. And if you ask them that question too quickly, then you're going to lose the possibility of having them as a client because they're not that type of person. So even just the basic knowledge of what we're talking about is such a powerful thing when it comes to, dealing with different, clients and when to ask what questions.
Yeah, 100%. And if you get that sense that person Because often your gut feel, when you tune into the other person, your gut feels quite accurate in many cases, particularly for people who've been around for a long time and dealt with lots of people through their lives and careers and businesses. Your people instincts are normally well refined.
Yeah.
And so you want to sort of be able to run with that. So the more reserved personality, you might say something like, well, Mary, you seem like you're the sort of person who likes to mull over your decisions and perhaps sleep on things. And they'll probably nod their head at that stage and say, yeah, that's right. Well, okay, how about you do that? But let's set a time in the diary to jump on the phone or pop over again. So you've got to get a fixed time, I think is really important, because these people can just sort of disappear into the cracks and you don't get to see them again. But nail down a time for a definite follow-up conversation. And it'd be, Mary, look, the very first thing I want to do is, answer all your questions. So go away, sleep on it, write down all your questions, and we'll get those answered. And then we'll see how things look after that. Right. And that's enough. And then you can get back to them. So some people, it's worth putting another step in the sales process. But whereas for others, it might just be too much, and that you can, particularly some of the outgoing people who are sort of results orientated and task focused, what we call the more dominant person, they want to just get on with it.
Yeah.
And, putting another meeting in the sales process might cause them for saying, for God's sake, we're just having meetings for meetings. I want to get something done. And it can be really frustrating for them. So you need to have a couple of ways of doing things. And so then if we come back to that reserved person, you've put another connection point in the process to be able to allow them to sleep on it and think about it. You can ask the closing questions, and I think you should do it at that second meeting. You should be saying, well, look, it looked good the other day. You had a chance to sleep on it. I've answered some of your questions now. It still looks like it seems like a good thing for you. Looks like we're pointing in the right direction, or whatever words you want to say. Okay, Mary, well, listen, would you like to proceed? Would you like to move ahead, right? So that's that sort of outgoing and reserve, but there's one more complication to it, and that is, where does a person's main focus lie? So DISC is like a grid like that, yeah? So the first one, though, is that, am I dealing with an outgoing person or a reserved person? How do they interact with the world? How do they show up, right? You've got to get that first, split that difference. And then the other way is, does this person seem like they're more focused on people, or are they more focused on a task, and getting something done? So your outgoing person who's focused on tasks, that's sort of in a way of, let's get stuff happening, let's go. They're sort of your bull at a gate type person, yeah?
Yeah.
Your reserved person who's focused on task is very much on the details of things, right? So your outgoing task person is a fast person. Go. It's having Tigger by the tail, literally, yeah? Whereas your reserved task-focused person is very much in the details, and sometimes can get stuck in the details, and sometimes can have analysis paralysis in decision-making and those sorts of things. If it's an employee, if you don't give a fairly clear path of procedure for them to follow, they can get stuck wondering what to do, because they're considering what's the right way to do this. Okay, I want to do this in the right way. I want to do this in the correct way. Not so much from an ego point of view of like, no, I'm always right. Nothing like that. But hey, if there's a right way to do things, I need to know what that right way is. I learned this early in my career, before I understood this, I was delegating a task to a very detailed orientated person, and I'm not so. So I gave a fairly blasé instruction, if you like. I was only a young manager. But what I found, that person sat on, but quite strong in personality compared to where this person with a reserved personality was, right? So you can see what the difference was there. And this person sat on that for nearly 2 days. And then when I followed up, they actually asked, is there a procedure for this? And it's like, well, hang on a minute. No, there wasn't a procedure. Sort of the first time someone in this office is doing this role. So what I should have said was sat down with them and actually mapped out a few broad bullet points of what a procedure could look like. So have a think through that, come back to me with what you think are going to be the steps, and had a look at that then with them, and then said, yeah, go and follow that procedure to do the job.
Yeah, because we're looking at it from a more analytical point of view.
We would have killed two birds with one stone. We would have got a written procedure for the job, and we would have got the job done.
Yeah.
It's slower than what I would have thought, because in my mind as a young manager, I just thought, yeah, do that, boom, it'll be done by tomorrow lunchtime. And again, that's the thing with working with people, is an accurate estimate of how long is it going to take to achieve a result with this person. Because if we're not accurate in that and we're dealing with someone who moves more slowly than what we like to move, we hit frustration. And what happens if we hit frustration is quite often we can do and say things inside an interpersonal relationship that doesn't bode well for long-term future.
Yeah.
And sometimes and it doesn't always mean that if we're a fast person, we got to slow down to the slow person's level. It can say, hey, we're going to meet in the middle here. I know you're thorough and prudent in what you do, and I really love that. And it's an aspect, and I'm quite open even to say this to subordinates. You know, I'm quite happy with that, because there's an aspect of my behavioral style where I'm not all that detailed. So you're going to pick up things that I'm not going to see. I absolutely love it. But we've also got a commercial reality around this. We've got to have a result by this time. I'm aiming for here. So let's work backwards from that. And then, so I became very cognizant of having to put a little planning part in there and letting them know what's realistic and when is enough analysis enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also doing it that way, number one, it's showing respect to the person, which they'll obviously pick up on. So that helps with the trust that you mentioned before. And I think it's just a much more positive way to create a working environment with someone, you know, whether it is an employee or a client. And I think that, you know, obviously the result from that is going to be a lot more positive and productive as well. Just 100%. By, you know, understanding how they work, knowing how they work, being able to read how they work and adjusting yourself. So put your ego aside as well, and it going, okay, right, well, that's the way I like to work, but this person likes to work this way. So let's, like you said, meet in the middle. But I think the whole experience for both is a lot more positive and a lot more productive if you just learn how to do it that way.
Yes, yes. And it's amazing how much information you can gather just by considering those two aspects of a person's style. Are they outgoing or reserved? And are they focused on people or focused on task? And imagine that giving you 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
You don't even really need to name them or have a list of characteristics of those so much. And in fact, over the years of teaching this, and I actually teach this with a little survey, I give people the survey to do a few days before, and then they fill it in and there's a graph, and I just take a look at the graphs. And I've perfected this now where in a room of 30 or 40 people, they can volunteer and they put their graphs up, and I'll ask them some questions about themselves, and they go, yeah, how'd you know that? Right? Are you more like this? Are you this? And they go, yeah, what are you been spying on me? And then I ask them about their partner, if they've got a life partner. And I'll ask some questions about that person. They go, what's going on here? How do you know
How did you know that?
I had a guy out of the military. He was in the security guard, or the dog security squad. He was fairly senior within that, but a young bloke, built like a brick toilet. And I asked him about his partner, and he sort of flexed up. He said, "What do you know her?" And I did. And I just could see the primary aspect of a person's personality and ask some broad questions around that. And it is what it is. So we're a mix of all 4 of those little elements I talked about. Yeah. But we've got one, sometimes 2, but more often one that's more predominant than any other. And we can change how we are between our home or natural environment and when we're in the work environment. Yeah. Some people don't change all that much, but some people change reasonably significantly. And that's because based on wanting to achieve a certain goal or have to adhere to certain rules or environmental criteria, we can make ourselves change. We're doing it every day. So what I sometimes people, particularly the more detail-minded people, start to think, oh, I've got to get this exactly right to use this personality stuff. No, I think that you are streets ahead of everybody else when you're trying to influence someone. And that's what we do as a business owner selling, and it's what we do as a business owner leading team. We're influencing other people. So as long as we're trying to walk a mile in their moccasins by considering who are they, how do they like their information, how are they going to receive their information, how are they going to respond to this type of information. So other person awareness is vitally important. And then starting to consider how can we package our message in the best way to get across. Your streets ahead. So, for example, all I remember is what's the primary need and the primary fear of those 4 personality styles that come out. So if you're outgoing and focused on task, that person wants to get something done. They want to get a result. So they're going to be, shut up and stop talking, Susie. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
Right? That's where they're going to be. Don't tell me any more about the features and damn benefits. Don't tell me about all the testimonials and everybody else. Don't tell me about the bells and whistles. Will I get my result and hit my goal? If I will, well, let's get on with it. That's that sort of person. And their biggest fear is to be taken advantage of or to have egg on their face. So sometimes that very strong bulldog personality, particularly in a sales environment, or a sales discussion, they can be asking really drilling questions, almost accusing you of being an idiot, the way they ask questions, and they're hard to deal with. And once I realize why they're doing it, it's because they don't want to make a decision where they look foolish. So they are going to put me through the ringer and almost treat me like as if I'm yanking their chain right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And if I survive that and handle that, well, I've passed the test and I'll move forward. Right? They're not going to worry that they roughed me up or gave me a hard time. They got skin as thick as a rhino. They don't hold grudges. They don't care. Goal, goal, goal. Let's go, go, go. And if I've got to put your nose out of joint along the way, Susie, to reach my goal, well, it's tough.
So be it.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
It's funny, sorry, go on.
If you move then to the next outgoing personality, which is still outgoing, but very people-orientated. So that's your and my one, Susie, the predominant one for us, so outgoing. So we need to get noticed. That's why we run webinars and seminars and highly lives and all that sort of stuff, right? So the need is to get noticed, right? And the big fear is loss of approval. So you'll often hear people who are of what we call an influencer style personality, so outgoing and people focused. When they're explaining something, you'll often hear say, do you know what I mean? And that's a check for, hang on a minute, are you still liking me? Are you still with me? Are you still liking me along the way? And both you and I do that, Susie, when we present. Nothing wrong with it. It's just the way we do it. So the need for the outgoing people-orientated person is the need to be noticed, and the fear is to loss of approval and not getting along with people. Eyes don't like conflict either. The influencers don't like conflict. Yeah. So that's the sort of person, when you go into their house or their office, if you're in a selling environment, you can notice things and you can comment on things. You can comment on what they're wearing, comment on the pictures on the wall. They're the ones you can have all end of small talk with. Because really, unless that person likes you, they don't want to do business with you anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the really interesting one, where you can talk about everything else bar the reason you're there for 50 minutes and talk about why you're there for 10 minutes, and you probably still make the sale because they liked you.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas you go back to the other one, which is the outgoing and task focus. If you try and be the warm, friendly salesperson, you'll annoy the heck out of them.
They don't have time. They don't have time. They don't care if they like you or they don't. Are you going to give them what they need?
100%. And then when you come down to the reserve personalities, right below that. So remember, we always split the difference between outgoing and reserve first.
Yeah.
So if you come down reserved, then you've got someone who's reserved and people focused. So they don't want to deliver bad news. Again, they don't like conflict. They don't want to rock the boat. So one of their biggest considerations when they're making a decision is, how is this going to affect others around me? So if it's a buying decision, how is this going to affect the rest of the family or the rest of the people in the business? If it's a management or a decision for an employee to make, how is this going to affect my teammates and those around me? How are we going to be supported? What's the backup? If I need anything, am I going to be left on my own? If my decision ends up causing an issue or a problem, and that has therefore affected others as well, what's our backup? What's our support? So safety and security, right? So fear of the biggest need is to create sort of harmony and status quo, and the biggest fear is conflict for that people-orientated but reserved person. And if we stay with the reserved people, you've got then the reserved person who's more task focused. And so they're into details, accuracy, order. They don't like change for change's sake, but to say that they are 100% change resistant, I think is incorrect. And sometimes they're accused of that, normally by the I personalities like us. I get a stick in the mud. We love change. Give us something new every week, please. I want something new tomorrow. Let's go, go, go. Yeah. Whereas this person's thinking, well, what's best for the long term? And if the long term is, hey, this ain't broke, so don't fix it, then that's great. But if there is something that's not performing well or something that does need to change, they're quite happy to do that. But they want to think it through very thoroughly so that they know we are making a change that's going to last us well into the future. So that from a management point of view, that can be challenging in some cases too, because we are dealing in environments that need to change all the time now because there is just so much uncertainty that's happening. So there's a big, leadership requirement there for people who like to think, well, hang on, I need to make a decision on something that's going to be right for the next 5 years. Well, we might not be able to do that in this environment. We might be able to just fix something up to get us to the end of the financial year. And then we might have to rejig. We might be doing some zigzagging for years to come because we're in pretty interesting times at the moment.
Yeah.
So, you've got, I tend to think about this as not how to lead someone or not how to sell to someone with a different personalities, but how do we influence them? And once you keep that in mind, you understand, well, okay, I can use those clues whether I am influencing them to buy something off me, i.e. selling, or influencing them when I'm managing them, i.e. leading them. It's amazing. And what it can do for you is really put your conversion rate through the roof. So if you're thinking about this as a growth strategy, it's probably not a lead generation strategy because you're not in contact with the prospects until you've done the marketing. So your marketing work is bringing the inquiry and helping to initiate that first conversation. But certainly it's in the sales process and the communication there and improving your conversion. So for those of you on the line who are thinking, if you're currently converting 2 out of 5 sales, and if you can move to just converting 3 out of 5 sales, you've actually increased your revenue by 50%. Right?
Makes a huge difference.
It's a massive difference. And you're not going to have any more sales conversations. You're still having the 5 conversations, but you're winning 3 of them instead of winning 2 of them. And that's a 50% increase. And that's a zero cost.
And you can do that just by simply adjusting the way you speak to someone, the way you deal with someone, what you talk about and how you say it, just by knowing more about their personality and how to adjust your personality for them. It's like I'm a very big personality. I'm an I. I'm a, in the disc, I'm a very high I.
Which is outgoing, people focus for those on the
but I'm very larger than life. Like I'm very animated when I'm talking to people. Now, if I'm speaking to someone who is on the other corner of that disc, and they're more analytical and quiet, and I'm going to freak them out by going, oh yeah, no, it's great, and they're going to go, whoa, and so I can not isolate it. What's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't sit well with them anyway.
Irritates them.
And so they won't connect with me. Whereas if I can recognize that they're an analytical person or a quiet person or a more reserved person, then I need to bring myself down to come close to matching them and being quieter, speaking quieter, making sure I give them the information that is right for them, not the information I want to give them, that's right for them. And I'll have a much better success rate with whether it's working with them as part of my business or whether it's having them as a client as part of my business. And I think it's such a powerful tool. And when I first came across this disc, and I know we're running out of time, but when I first came across this disc, it was interesting because for me it didn't click completely in place until it was put to me in a way of these are the people that fit into this space. So your dominant was like a Donald Trump type personality. The influencer was like a Richard Branson type personality, which I love because I love Richard Branson. The S was it's a steadiness. The S is more of a Princess Diana, even a Mother Teresa type personality. And the compliant is a Bill Gates. Very analytical and things like that. So if you're looking to do this at a very basic level, just keep those personalities in mind of what those people represent, and it helps you a lot with trying to recognize the kind of person you're dealing with. And obviously there's a lot more to it than that, and I know we go into that in our Business Builders Club, but there's a lot more to it than that, and you can really hone it down to pinpoint accuracy, as you said before. But I just find they're good as a really basic thing to keep in mind as to who you're dealing with and how to adjust yourself to be able to connect with them a lot better.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think when we are, you're right, Susie. There's a lot of depth that can go into, but when you're in the cut and thrust of conversations with people, you really just need quite a simple framework to hold in your head to keep you on track. One of the things when I first started using this many years ago was I'd just draw a little cross on the top of my top right hand corner of my notebook as I was talking, just to start to consider where have we got them. Where is the person that I'm talking to on this? Split the difference, outgoing or reserved. Are they people or task? And then, and I put a little dot in there. No one ever asked me what it was, but that was just to remind me of the best ways to be able to interact with that. And that's, I think, all you need to do. You don't really even, I keep saying this to people, you don't really even need to know the correct names of the boxes or what the characteristics of those are, because if you're dealing with someone who's outgoing and task focused and wants to get a result, then you're going to respond to that person in a different way to someone who was reserved and people focused and doesn't want to create conflict. You can see that right now, how you can adjust yourself. So just bringing yourself to that level of other person awareness is such a key. And not only can you increase your conversion rate and therefore your revenue and profitability in your business using this, you can also get the best out of the people that you work with from a production or productivity point of view.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, there we go. That's 25 or something minutes, isn't it, Susie?
A little bit over, but that's okay. I love this stuff. I love anything to do with with personalities and behavior and things like that, because it just can make such a huge difference in how you do things, how you work, and what kind of environment you create for your business, which is brilliant. Now, James, we have to mention to people that if they would like, if you've enjoyed our Highly Live for 25 this morning, we do this every week at 11:15 on a Tuesday. But if you'd like to know a little bit more on different strategies, how you can actually double your business this year, we're holding our masterclass tonight at 7 p.m.
7 a.m. Whoa.
7 a.m. Yeah, no, we don't do that at 7 a.m. 7 p.m. tonight, Queensland time, so Australian Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to join us, I will pop the link in the comments now. And please, it's a free masterclass, and it goes for about an hour and a half. And we freely share some fantastic tips and tricks and strategies with you that will make a difference. 9 of them all up that we're going to make a difference to your business. And the great thing is you can implement them right now, today, the minute that masterclass is finished, and they will absolutely impact your business. And I love these masterclasses. I just love that we share this stuff with people. They're zero to minimal cost, each strategy. So, you can use all of them, use a few of them, whatever it is. It's not going to cost you a cent. And, I love what we share. I think they're fantastic. So very quickly, James, what are we going to cover with people in our masterclass tonight?
Yeah, well, look, we'll be going through the concept of doubling your business this year. So we're going to look at the typical boom-bust cycle in a business and what you can do about it. We're also going to be looking at some strategies across a range of areas to help you build and grow your business. And I'll be talking a lot about the concept that so often when people turn their attention to business growth and business building strategies, they tend to only look into the lead generation aspect of the business. It's an important one. I don't deny that. But to do only that stuff is leaving a lot of other opportunities on the table, and many opportunities that can be low cost or zero cost to improve the revenue and profits in your business. So we'll be taking a more balanced approach to that, I believe, tonight. And that's one of the unique insights that people get from tonight's webinar.
Yep.
So go ahead and register. We've got another date later in the week as well. So if tonight doesn't suit you, just jump on, and you can change which particular date you're coming in. We run these relatively regularly, but you want to get on the list and make sure you get your seat before everyone else does.
Yeah, definitely. And as James said, there's a couple of different options there for you, dates and time wise. So again, it is a completely free masterclass. And I love that we get into it from the get-go too. We don't go through half an hour of telling you how good we are and how much money we make and all the rest of the fluff, let's call it fluff, that they tend to go on with. If you've ever
Get on with
attended
it.
a
That's the D
webinar,
dominant coming out of it. Get on with it.
it's like, come on, let's just give me the good stuff. And I think you know, the last couple we've done, I think our thing is, you know, I'm Suzi Manley and this is James McNamara, and let's get into it. And that's pretty much about as involved as we get in that section. So guys, from the get-go of our masterclass, we're going to share these strategies with you. We know you're going to love them, so make sure you jump on those links, register. We'll see you at 7 o'clock tonight. If not, as James said, we do have other times and dates available, and love for you to join us. So we have a bit of fun too. We're not, you know, we always have fun in what we do.
It's good fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you either tonight or next week for our next Highly Live for 25. Have a fantastic day. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
Take care.
ciao, bye.
Bye.